In the opulent atrium of the exclusive Meridian Club in Chicago, a prominent black entrepreneur steps forward to check in for his conference, only to be abruptly redirected to the service entrance by a skeptical receptionist. Despite his confirmed booking, suspicion clouds the interaction, and security is summoned. What they don't know? He's the CEO, and what unfolds next will ripple across the nation. Before we dive into this gripping tale, drop a comment with where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The Meridian Club in Chicago didn't shout. It murmured. Gleaming chandeliers cast soft prisms over a polished granite floor, where every sound was softened by wealth. The air carried hints of rare orchids, aged whiskey, and something sharper: status. Guests moved with the ease of those who never had to justify their presence. Then the glass doors parted. Marcus Wright stepped inside, a black man in his early 40s. His tailored charcoal suit was impeccable, understated. A sleek wristwatch glinted faintly. His face was composed, unreadable, but his eyes were sharp, always sharp. The eyes of someone who'd navigated too many spaces where he wasn't anticipated, yet never faltered. He approached the reception desk. Behind it stood Emily Harper, mid-30s, in a pristine blazer, her name tag shining. Her smile vanished as she glanced up. Before Marcus could speak, she cut in. "The staff entrance is around back," she said sharply, pointing toward the exit. Marcus paused, unruffled on the surface. "I have a booking," he said evenly. "Right, conference room 3. Emily hesitated. The name didn't register. Still, she turned to her tablet, tapping slowly, her eyes darting to him between keystrokes. The booking appeared. He was listed. Yet her posture remained stiff, her expression unchanged. "I'll need your membership ID," she said flatly, suspicion veiled by professional courtesy. Marcus nodded once, reaching into his coat pocket. Emily's hand slid beneath the counter. Click. Silent alarm. Marcus didn't flinch. He'd seen this play out too often. Still, it stung. The assumption, the instinct. He pulled out his wallet slowly, deliberately, avoiding any sudden moves. "Just my ID," he said calmly, knowing any hint of frustration could be weaponized against him. Emily took the card without meeting his gaze, her fingers trembling slightly, though she tried to conceal it. Down the corridor, the faint sound of polished shoes quickened. Security had been alerted. Marcus stood firm. The room shifted. A man by the lounge's fireplace lowered his tablet. A woman in a designer coat whispered to her colleague, nodding toward Marcus with a raised brow. To them, his presence was an anomaly, his skin a question they couldn't overlook. All he'd done was walk through the front door. The security guard approached, his steps deliberate, boots echoing on the granite, as if summoned, not by threat, but by uncertainty, dressed in a sharp blazer. Marcus stood tall, eyes steady. His wallet remained in hand, ID extended across the counter. Emily ignored it, her relief palpable as the uniformed guard arrived. "Is there an issue, ma'am?" the guard asked, his tone low but firm. Emily didn't respond immediately. Her fingers hovered over the tablet, caught between continuing the check-in or deferring to the guard she'd already deemed necessary. "He claims he has a booking," she said finally, her voice cautious, as if defusing a bomb. Marcus turned slightly toward the guard. "I do," he said. "Marcus Wright, conference room 3. My colleague arrives soon, Hiroshi Tanaka. We're set for 10:30. The guard showed no recognition of the names, no hint he knew who Hiroshi Tanaka was or what Marcus Wright represented. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, as if Marcus's calm was itself a challenge. "Membership ID, sir?" "Yes," Marcus replied, offering it again. "Right here." But the gesture now felt heavier, not a formality, but a defense, as if he were proving something fundamental that others in this room would never need to justify. Emily tapped the tablet again, confirming what she already knew, but seemed compelled to recheck. The screen confirmed. Marcus Wright. Booking confirmed. Room 3, 10:30 a.m. Still, she avoided his gaze. "There's no guest listed," she said, as if clutching at a reason to validate her doubt. "I didn't submit a guest list," Marcus said evenly. "We're both board members. It's an internal meeting." The guard shifted his stance. "Without a guest note, we'll need management approval, and you'll need to wait outside the lounge area." Marcus's jaw tightened faintly. Inside, a quiet tremor stirred. Not fear, not raw anger, but something deeper, forged by years of navigating expectations and surviving despite them. He gave a curt nod. "Then call the manager." The air shifted. Not just Emily, not just the guard. Others in the room were watching now. Some pretended otherwise. A woman with auburn hair on a plush sofa angled her phone subtly. Her name, Marcus would later learn, was Claire Thompson, a vlogger with a knack for exposing uncomfortable truths. She was live streaming, her fingers barely moving as her camera captured Marcus's profile and the polished resistance before him. "Why is he being stopped?" A comment flashed on her screen. "He seems calm. What's the problem?" Another read. Marcus didn't know about the stream yet. He only felt the weight of stares, the burden of staying composed in a space that questioned his right to composure. A space that didn't voice its thoughts because it didn't need to. The glances spoke volumes. "I'm not leaving," Marcus said at last. "Call whoever you need, but I'm not stepping outside to be vetted like a courier." The guard's brows lifted slightly. "We're asking for cooperation, sir. That's all." "No," Marcus said, still calm, measured. "You're asking me to vanish, to wait out of sight until I'm deemed acceptable." Emily's head snapped up, lips parting as if to protest. But she didn't, because that was precisely what it was, and naming it made her flinch more than acting on it had. Marcus met her gaze, his voice softening just enough to reveal a trace of pain beneath the resolve. "Is that the policy here?" he asked. "Or just for people like me?" Emily said nothing. The guard glanced toward the back hallway, perhaps hoping a manager would appear and spare him this uneasy task. But no one came. Claire's phone kept rolling, comments stacking up. Strangers watched in real time as a man in a suit, with a confirmed booking, faced unyielding assumptions. Marcus felt the familiar pulse of rage, but he couldn't let it surface. Not here. Not now. He steadied his breath, recalling countless moments where being right didn't matter, where composure was his only armor. He'd perfected staying calm in the face of insult, not because it was just, but because it was necessary. Yet something fractured inside him, subtle but real. He was done complying. "I'm not the one causing a scene," he said, voice low but each word deliberate. "I walked in, gave my name, my booking. I followed your process. Yet I'm treated like an intruder." He looked around, fully at the onlookers pretending not to watch. A man in a navy blazer averted his gaze. Claire's phone held steady. The silence grew heavy. Emily's fingers twitched on the counter, her eyes flicking between the tablet, Marcus, and the guard. She couldn't justify her actions without exposing bias cloaked in protocol. "And still," she said, "we're just following procedure." "No," Marcus said softly. "You're following instinct." The elevator dinged behind them. He glanced over, expecting Hiroshi, but it wasn't him. Just more onlookers, more eyes, more silent judgment. Unseen by the front desk, Claire's livestream viewership climbed past 200. The world was watching. But no one there knew the most powerful man in the room wasn't the one being shielded. He was the one under scrutiny. The atrium became a silent courtroom. No gavel, no judge, just judgment everywhere. Eyes lingered with growing unease as Claire Thompson's live stream hit 1,000 viewers. She spoke sparingly into the camera, just enough for context, her voice hushed. "This man's been here 10 minutes with a confirmed booking. They're still blocking him. I don't know what they're waiting for." Her lens stayed on Marcus Wright's profile, catching every restrained tick in his jaw, every breath held behind civility. The guard stood stiffly, eyes darting between Marcus and the desk, waiting for a superior to resolve the tension. But Marcus broke the moment, not with anger, not with protest, but with precision. He reached into his jacket and produced a sleek black card, minimalist in design. He held it up, pinched between two fingers, and placed it on the counter before Emily without a word. She blinked, hesitated, then leaned forward to read it. Her lips parted. It was small, but to her, it was a bombshell. Embossed in silver were the words, Marcus Wright, Chief Executive Officer, Wright Global Ventures. Below, a private contact, a logo, and a line in Japanese she couldn't read. The air shifted. She straightened, realizing she'd been sitting too comfortably above a man who was never beneath her. For the first time that morning, Emily spoke Marcus's full name differently. "Mr. Wright," her voice caught, teetering between shock and dread. Her mind raced, no longer questioning his place, but who had seen her doubt it. The guard stepped back, face neutral, but the retreat spoke volumes, a man unsure of his footing. Emily glanced at the tablet again, the booking now heavy with new meaning. Her words faltered, throat dry. "I didn't realize. The booking was under initials. Emsor Wright, I thought—" Marcus cut through her fraying excuse with quiet finality. "I use initials deliberately," he said. "I want to see how people are treated when they're not seen as important." He wasn't angry, not exactly, but his steady gaze stripped away her defenses. He turned to the guard. "I've been a member here for 5 years. I hold a corporate membership through my firm. I've hosted summits here with 2 governors and a trade delegate. Yet today, I was told to use the back entrance." Claire's voice whispered into her phone, weighty without volume. They were about to escort out the owner of the conference room. Marcus faced the atrium, speaking not just to the desk, but to the space itself, its air, its architecture of privilege. "My colleague, Mr. Tanaka, arrives in 10 minutes. What should I tell him he's walking into? Because he won't see this as a clerical error." Emily's face paled. Her hands trembled faintly, uncontrollably. She opened her mouth, grasping for words, but Marcus raised a hand. Not in anger, in finality. "Don't insult us both by calling this a mix-up," he said. "You knew what you assumed the moment I walked in." He retrieved the card, sliding it into his wallet. The simple act felt charged, as if he were reclaiming not just the card, but his authority, reminding all present he'd never lost control. Yet beneath the polished calm he'd honed over years, something shifted, a quiet, cold grief. No matter his success, his titles, he'd always be asked to prove his place in spaces that should welcome him without question. Emily spoke again, barely audible. "Mr. Wright, I'm deeply sorry. I didn't mean—" "It's not about your intent," Marcus cut in, not unkindly, but with truth that offered no solace. "It's about your instinct." Behind them, Claire's livestream viewership surged, comments flooding in. "He's handling this with more grace than I could." She wouldn't have questioned a white CEO like that. This is why leadership diversity matters. Marcus stepped back from the desk. He didn't storm off or demand a scene. He stood still, letting the silence speak what no one else dared. This wasn't new, just public. Emily froze, unsure whether to apologize again or vanish. The guard glanced at the hallway, now knowing his assumed authority had dissolved. Marcus didn't gloat or smirk. He waited, because the truth had spoken, and the room had to sit with it. The atrium held its breath long after Marcus stepped away. He moved only a few feet to the leather armchairs by the towering windows, where earlier a man in a pinstripe suit had shifted to avoid him. Now, as Marcus sat with quiet dignity, he felt the eyes shift, not to him, but to their own discomfort in witnessing this. His name had landed like a stone in calm water. Marcus Wright, CEO, not whispered, but declared, filmed, now echoing across over 1,000 screens via Claire's livestream. From her seat, Claire lowered her phone slightly, not to stop recording, but to see him clearly. He wasn't triumphant. No smugness, no victory in his expression. Just a silence louder than his words, built from years of moments like this in boardrooms, hotels, airports. The world kept demanding he stay calm while proving his place. He glanced at the clock above the mantel. 10:30 neared. Hiroshi Tanaka was due, and Marcus couldn't let this derail the meeting. Business demanded focus, and his name carried too much weight for visible cracks. Yet in his chest, he felt the pressure, not just from today, but from knowing no achievement would fully shield him. The truth was stark. Blackness came first. Credentials followed. Behind the desk, Emily bit her lip, sensing the shift, the scrutiny, her choices catching up in real time. She wasn't inexperienced or careless. But when Marcus Wright stepped forward in his flawless suit, her instincts had outshouted her training. Now those instincts were exposed to a growing audience. She turned to the back office, murmured to the assistant manager who'd finally appeared, then stepped out from the desk. Her heels clicked softly on the granite, but in her chest, the sound was deafening. Each step toward Marcus felt heavier. She stopped before him, hands trembling, fingers clasped, as if shielding herself from the apology she'd come to give. "Mr. Wright," her voice cracked, barely audible. He looked up, meeting her eyes, not with anger or disappointment, but with piercing clarity. He saw her completely. "I'd like to speak privately," she said, "if that's okay." Marcus studied her, the flush in her cheeks, the shimmer of fear and shame in her eyes. He stood, composed, and nodded toward a side corridor. They moved to a small, glass-walled office off the atrium, quiet and private. Claire didn't follow, but her camera panned to the door where a reckoning unfolded. Inside, Emily's composure shattered. Her eyes reddened, her voice barely held. "I didn't know," she said, breath shaky. "I didn't know who you were. I swear, I wasn't trying to, I just didn't think." Marcus raised a hand, firm but not harsh. "You didn't need to know who I was," he said. "That's the point." Emily looked down, ashamed. "I made a mistake, a terrible one. I reacted without thinking. I thought you might not belong." He finished for her, voice low. "Someone who shouldn't walk through the front door, asking for a room." She nodded, his words sinking in like ice. "I'm sorry." Marcus watched her. Her apology wasn't empty or performative. She looked like someone confronting a version of herself she didn't want to acknowledge. But he knew good intentions didn't undo harm. He'd seen the gap between guilt and growth, and it hinged on what followed. He spoke calmly, with the weight of experience. "This happens more than you realize," he said. "To people without cards that make others backpedal, without live streams to hold anyone accountable, who leave through the back when asked, and no one sees them again." Emily nodded, tears brimming. "I submitted my resignation. I didn't want to jeopardize the club. I know what this could become." Marcus's expression didn't soften, but it shifted, tinged with weariness. "I don't want to ruin lives," he said. "I don't believe in that, but I believe in consequences. You'll get a full severance package, and I'll include a letter confirming that. But use this moment to remember, not bury, because the next man questioned here won't be me, and no one will be streaming. She nodded silently, face wet, trying to hide it. He saw her struggle to hold together, and despite everything, felt a flicker of something. Perhaps not forgiveness, but the start of empathy, or the exhaustion of clinging to rage when clarity had done the work. Back in the atrium, Claire's stream hit 2,500 viewers. Comments poured in, some angry, some praising Marcus's restraint, others sharing stories of being strangers in places they belonged. The world watched, not for drama, but for truth. Marcus stepped out of the office and returned to the lounge. He adjusted his cuff, checked his watch. 10:31, right on time. He didn't look back. That moment held nothing more for him, just an unfinished sentence in the long dialogue between perception and reality. And it wasn't over. The Meridian Club's glass doors swung open as Marcus settled back in his seat. A crisp breeze followed a man in a navy overcoat, poised and deliberate. Hiroshi Tanaka entered with the quiet authority of someone who never needed to announce himself. His eyes swept the room, calm but curious, landing on Marcus by the fireplace. Marcus nodded, and Hiroshi returned a slight bow before approaching. "Marcus," he greeted, peeling off his gloves. "Not late, I hope?" "Right on time," Marcus replied, gesturing toward the conference room. "Shall we?" Hiroshi paused briefly, glancing at the desk where tension still lingered like a faint burn. Emily was gone. Her manager stood rigid, silent. The guard had vanished, but the atrium remembered. So did Claire, now with her phone lowered, watching with quiet vindication. As they walked to the conference room, Hiroshi spoke softly. "Something happened, didn't it?" Marcus nodded, a faint smile not reaching his eyes. "Let's say we've already had our first deal of the day." Inside the boardroom, the mood shifted. Mahogany walls, frosted glass, a polished table set for two. A coffee carafe steamed between them. Marcus sat with practiced ease, though the morning's weight lingered. He didn't show it. Hiroshi opened a folder and slid it across. "I reviewed the terms. We're aligned. Our teams may tweak the global licensing, but the equity split is solid." Marcus scanned the document, his mind sharp, efficient. This was familiar ground, safe. Contracts cared only for clarity and value, and Marcus had mastered both over decades. "I've been thinking," he said, eyes on the page. "I want to add a commitment, not a clause." Hiroshi looked up, intrigued. "Go on." "A scholarship fund," Marcus said. "Co-sponsored by Wright Global and Tanaka Enterprises for students of color, aiming for leadership in tech and innovation. Not just coders, but future executives, visionaries." Hiroshi's brow lifted, then softened. "Bold move. I'm tired of seeing talent overlooked, doubted, asked to prove they belong in rooms they've earned tenfold," Marcus said, voice steady. Today was a reminder. We can't just react to harm. We need to sow change before the wound. Hiroshi nodded slowly. "A seed in the right soil," he murmured, "grows stronger than the barriers built to block it." Marcus met his gaze, moved. Exactly. They shook hands, not as executives, but as men who valued legacy. In that moment, the morning's pain bent slightly toward purpose. 40 minutes later, they exited the boardroom. The atrium was quieter, Claire gone. The crowd dispersed, but the air held the residue of what transpired, like dust after a storm. As Hiroshi headed for the door, Marcus paused, glancing back at the desk, the polished floor, the echo of assumption. He exhaled, not relief but recognition. This was the way of things. One confrontation, one choice of dignity over rage, one person changed. Sometimes that was enough. He stepped toward the glass doors, the city's glow filtering through morning fog. The world hadn't shifted, not yet. But a seed was planted. In that room, that staff, that live stream circling online. As Marcus walked into the chill, he didn't feel victorious, but grounded. Not because justice was served, but because he remained himself against a system that asked him not to be. He exhaled, not from exhaustion, but clarity. Change doesn't arrive with fanfare. It starts on the hardest mornings, in familiar pain. And still, it starts. Join us for more powerful stories. Hit like and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for daily doses of insight and empathy.